That was really good. I enjoyed that. I feel like dancing now. What about you?
Oh, we could dance for a little while. I was dancing backstage.
Yeah. In our green room, Eve was getting jiggy with it. I could see her doing that. What's going on, my friend? You were kind enough to let me get myself situated here. You were kind enough to step in today and show up and talk to us
I'm
about a number
excited.
of
I'm
things.
excited to talk today.
Yeah, all right, okay, all right. If you say so. You know, when you show up, the audience goes crazy. There is a handful of people who show up, and the audience pretty much says, "What's the point of you being there, Paxton? We really only want to see them." So I have that today with you, and I've done that twice. Annie, the audience feels that way about Annie. They just said, "Paxton, just stop talking. Just let her talk." And they do that with you. They go like, "Paxton, why are you even there? We just want to see Eve." So thank you for being here today. Back to back
Thank you
good
for
shows, I
having
know.
me.
Now, are you ready for this torture? You sure you're ready for this?
I'm ready.
All
I'm
right.
ready for it. We're talking about my favorite thing to talk about, so I'm well ready.
Okay. So you're well ready. So we're going to jump right into it, everybody. We have, of course, done a number of shows together. We are going to talk about, well, I'm going to go ahead. Here we go. This posting. This posting
Mm.
is the 7 stages of trauma bonding. It is on your Instagram page. Would you like to tell? I'm sorry. I was,
Every time you do this to
no, I was
me.
trying not to laugh. And I said, You should have seen me yesterday. I said, you cannot laugh. You cannot laugh. And the first thing I did was giggle like a 5-year-old boy. Can you tell everyone your Instagram page? It's a running
I
joke between
can.
us, everybody. Just deal with it. Go ahead.
They're gonna know why when I start to say it out loud because it's your dot underscore dot easy dot underscore dot life. That's where you'll find me on Instagram. You can search your easy life and you can see their little smiley faces in between each word. So that's where you'll find me over on Instagram.
I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention. Could you repeat that for us one more time? No, I'm just kidding. Not gonna do that. Not gonna do that. Let's see here. The 7 stages of trauma bonding, a serious subject for many who are dealing with
Mm.
this. I'm going to touch on some of the comments. Excuse me, the caption that you put with this posting before we start with number one. You ask the audience, your followers and subscribers. You also have an Instagram, it's rather a YouTube page, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
Correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Uh, you say, do you alternate between loving, liking the toxic person and hating them? You also ask this question: do you wish they would just love, like you, and be nice to you? Many can no doubt connect with that. Even with your experience in helping others, these are questions that you were confronted with as well
Yeah,
by helping others,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think to just kind of lay the set the kind of backdrop to this is just to give a really simple definition of what a trauma bond is so that everybody knows where we are at in terms of just having that definition, and also recognizing that often this information and this knowledge and understanding is often really the first step in coming to this realization that this relationship that you've been in and the feelings of love and compassion aren't actually reciprocated, and that the attachment that's been formed between you and the perpetrator of harm is in fact a trauma response and a psychological coping mechanism to the experience of being with somebody who utilizes some of the techniques and the abusive kind of behaviors that we're going to cover as we move through these stages. And so the definition of a trauma bond is an attachment that we formed to somebody who is a perpetrator of harm in our life. So it's this connection, this feeling that we have got this kind of entanglement and this relationship and this need to be with somebody despite the fact that they are a perpetrator of harm in your life. And you might be aware they're a perpetrator of harm, you might not be aware they're a perpetrator of harm, but either way, underlying that attachment is this trauma bond, which we will kind of get more into as we go through. And the way that it starts, inevitably, in almost all cases, is with this first stage, love bombing. And often when people hear that phrase, love bombing, they think, yes, that is definitely what happened to me. I was swept up in this extreme kind of tornado of gestures, of promises, of kindness, things that I'd never heard before in my life, acts that had never been performed before, things that you think only happen in movies or on the television or in poetry. And it feels like this intense love bombing. It's coming at it from all angles. And like I say, it can be immaterial. Material means with gifts, with holidays, with grand gestures. It might be in great big promises. It might be a very quick progression into sharing a home together, sharing accommodation. That can often be a characteristic of the love bombing phase. And this is when the perpetrator is really getting to know what it is that you respond best to in terms of painting, in order for you to paint them in your mind as somebody who is a positive member of your close circle now. And it can last for a long time, the love bombing phase. Actually, there isn't really a set amount of time that it could last for, and it can be a slow burn or it can be a very quick one. You might find that it happens gradually, and there's some things that kind of work. It might be like, you know, if somebody says to you, oh, what's your favourite film? And then they like the same films as you. What's your favourite music? Oh, that's my favourite music too. All of this is the kind of love bombing, this laying this foundation that you're destined to be together, that all of your interests and your experiences align. And it's also laying a foundation of shared memories that you're going to have further down the line that you can be referred back to. And it's things like, oh, remember when we went on holiday to such and such? Remember when we did that and it was this explosive and all-encompassing and completely and utterly bewildering experience where you felt like a princess or a prince, or like you were the only person in the room, or, you know, all of those ginormous feelings that really get us hooked into the relationship.
So I have to ask this question then. That means that the person is not just out to have a good experience or adventure with you. They're using that moment in time that seems like a good time as ammunition later, or bait to draw you back in after they've been mistreating you.
Essentially, yeah. It's up for debate as to how conscious that behaviour is, in the sense that there isn't a point in the future that they are working towards. There is an underlying need to take control and to yield power in order to create a sense of self-worth in themselves. And so these are all techniques that are learned to have worked to eventually go through that kind of, to that point. And the thing to remember is abusive behavior and these kinds of psychological, emotionally abusive, it's a pattern, it's a cycle, and it's the only cycle that they know how to run. And so it's happening unconsciously. There's a point in the past where love bombing has worked, and it's got them closer to the point where they can exact the control, where they can get their sense of self inflated, where that false reality is kind of maintained, and then therefore they know it's going to work, so they work to do it. And that's really what happens on that first, with that love bombing. It really is that laying the foundation. And it's often, along with this second stage, which I will just touch on before we move into the third one, is that this is the one that sets the belief that you as the victimized party
Hmm.
start to develop about the person. So we can only ever judge a person on their behavior. We tend to, or we have an inclination to judge people on what they say, but actually people can say an awful lot and they don't do anything to back up their words. But as somebody who is has high integrity and does follow through on their promises, does carry on through with what they say, when somebody else makes a promise or somebody else says something, we're inclined to trust it. And this is where this second phase comes in. So they actually do model that behavior, that trust and dependency. They do say they're going to do something and then they do it. And this is all laying the kind of making the beliefs about this person. You're generating your network of beliefs around who this person is based on these grand gestures, these big promises, and also this gaining of trust in order to make you dependent on them for those good feelings, for generating those emotions and those experiences that you feel during that love bombing phase.
And this number two, this trust and dependency, first was love bombing, and then here we have number two, trust and dependency. It says a perpetrator does nearly everything right to gain trust while slowly making the victim dependent on them for self-validation and other needs. So for me, I'm just going to throw this out to you, my friend. So that number two takes place. Number one, number two takes place. And I'm going to go over to your caption for that posting. It says, do you avoid telling them how you feel in order to keep the peace? So if a person's had number one and two and something pops up, you don't want to say anything because it seems like, well, I'm just nitpicking.
Exactly.
But actually, it may be a huge red flag.
And I can just talk from my own personal experience from 1 and 2, just to kind of give some more kind of flesh to these stages. So that initial stage for me was very much about those grand gestures, about a surprise holidays, about big promises. And the second phase was about being my protector, coming into my home and making sure that I was safe. I lived and worked in a restaurant, so it was a target, I suppose, if you wanted to look at it like that. You know, there is an element of security there that could be played on. And that's that was used to kind of facilitate this trust and dependency. I'm here now. I will keep you safe. There's cash on site. There's valuables here. You need somebody that will keep you safe. And all that is happening. And that's that making me dependent on him through this, what looks like noble behavior, but actually has a really sinister undertone and is really just setting up for what's coming further down the line.
You have another question that was in the caption. It says, have you ever stood up for the toxic person when someone pointed out their unhealthy behaviors? Which is an excellent question to ask. And
that's 3, a really characteristic one of somebody who's deep in a trauma bond and who's doing those kinds of this plays out further along the process in the way that you would double question a behavior. So you might say, why would they hug me when I'm upset if they were like that? Why would they do something like that? And that's the kind of how you defend their behaviors to other people, is they say, well, they can't be like that because they do this. And it's possible for both of those things to be true at the same time.
So the good and the bad could be happening at the same time. But essentially you're highlighting that we would have to be in the present to see it for what it really is. Because if a family member or a close friend that you've been knowing longer than this person is pointing out some red flags, the person is caught between, like you're saying, the this and the that, right? So we call
that feeling's cognitive dissonance. I know that you speak about cognitive dissonance on your channel a lot, and these first 2 stages are what frame the behavior, which is frame the belief, which is what we're forming about a person in the early stages. And like I say, this isn't in a couple of weeks. This can be over months. It can even stretch as long as over years in terms of actually setting up that belief. Also, those beliefs are reinforced by behaviors outside of the relationship. So ways they interact with your friends, with your family, with people that are just in your close circle or even not in your close circle. All of those behaviors, that love bombing, that trust, that dependency, is being created through their behaviors, and is setting up the beliefs you have about the person.
Okay, wait a minute. So essentially, correct me, my friend. You're saying that they would literally be taking the same thing they're doing to us. It's happening to me, but they're doing it also to my children, to my relatives. They're doing a little bit of that love bombing and all that trust and dependency all the way around, essentially putting themselves in a position that no matter what, they're either going to be the victim in the long run or they're going to be the victor, or however it goes. They're setting up everything. So just in case
everything, because again, like I say, there's debate over whether it's conscious or unconscious, but certainly it's learned behavior. Certainly it's happening in a cyclical fashion. They're following patterns. This is what's worked in the past. This is what's got them to outcomes that they desire. And so it works in all settings, and they can have different people at different stages of the trauma bonding process. Some people might stay in those early stages because that serves the false image that's being portrayed, and actually then backs up when things start to be questioned, is that it's not me, that's not me. Speak to all my pals, they don't think of me like that. Or, and that's where we can see smear campaigns being generated off the back of all of this, creating this belief about a person which is founded on a false reality.
And your number 3 was is criticism. For those of you, I know a number of you have told me you don't watch the show that much. You actually just listen to it as you work out and exercise, do things around the house. So I'm sorry if sometimes I don't describe what we're seeing on the screen. But it says criticism is number 3 from Eve's posting of the 7 things in regards to trauma bond. After they've made the victim dependent on them, they start criticizing the victim, their abilities, appearance, attitudes, beliefs, and etc. So they start to tear down the structure of the person or make them disbelieve the structure.
The tearing down of the person comes a little bit further on, and actually is often self kind of propelled in response to this dissonance that is starting to be generated. What's happening with the criticism is that we're pushing boundaries now. They're seeing how much they can push a boundary on appearance, on behaviors, on your job. They start to kind of see how much you're going to take in terms of negative behavior, negative energy, negative responses, and they're just testing. Because actually, if somebody's been through that initial stage where they've been love bombed and then they've had the trust and dependency phase, at this point they're in a healthy relationship. They're in a happy, healthy relationship with somebody who behaves in a way that matches the beliefs that they're generating about them. At the point where the criticism starts, that's when the dissonance starts to come in, because now this person that was happy and healthy and fulfilling and supportive and was following through on promises, now this person is starting to eke away. And now it's ball goes into the victimized person's court to see whether they're going to hold a boundary, whether they're going to stand for what they can see in the behavior and accept that it doesn't match the belief and then choose a course of action from there, or are they going to accept the criticism, accept the boundary pushing? And if they don't, then there is another tool that the narcissist or the abuser, the perpetrator, will use, and that is what happens in stage 4, because that's when they will start to employ the gaslighting and the manipulation tactics to see if you are going to resist the boundary being pushed, how hard are you going to resist it, and how much can they convince you that actually that boundary it's not okay to hold that boundary has no place in this dynamic, and these are the reasons why. I.e., you might be crazy, you've misunderstood, you've misheard it, you had no place questioning that. Those kinds of behaviors start to kind of justify the criticisms so that under the surface, they're working away generating the dissonance. And one thing that we've spoken about before in previous shows is the way that dissonance can be resolved. And the first way is through accepting it. So by saying, this behavior does not match the beliefs that I formed in those first 2 stages, and so I'm out of here. You're not who you say you are. The second way is to add in a compensating behavior. So when they start to criticize, you might then start to change your behaviors. You start to add in more behaviors. You start to adjust things. You start to, I won't stay out as late because I got criticized for staying out.
You adjust to the criticism, you're saying.
Yeah, you adjust.
So either, well, then there's no boundary, right?
Exactly.
Or actually, that kind of sounds like you're pulling back.
You're letting that boundary slide.
Yeah. So you're pulling back your boundary in essence. Where before you would be standing firm with your boundary, if not moving it forward even more by saying you're not who you said you were.
Absolutely.
I'm out of here. Matter of fact, just again, for those of you who love to listen to the show, gaslighting and manipulation is number 4. They begin to make the victim doubt their own perceptions and manipulate them into believing their narratives about situations. Everything starts to become the victim's fault, is what you highlight for number 4.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead, please. I'm going to touch on something in a second, but go ahead.
I was just going to say that's exactly what's happening, is that they start to employ this is often when people on the outside might start to get a kind of a sense that this person isn't as the healthy person that you believe they are at the time. And the trauma bond's really starting to form now. And the trauma bond, it really does pull you into an illusion of reality. And one of the fundamental or the primitive coping mechanisms that we have psychologically as human beings is denial. And denial to ourselves, denial to other people is really the easiest way to make that tension, that dissonance go away. And so if you are not accepting it, if you are not adding in a compensating behavior, then maybe you're going to just deny that there was a problem at all.
And we've talked about 4 different aspects of the 7 that you highlight. We had the previous one was criticism, number 3. Number 2 was trust and dependency. Number 1 was love bombing. Each one of these stages, each one that you see scrolling across your screen, are items that are from Eve's Instagram page. I'm not going to do it, Eve. I want to, but I'm not going to tell you to repeat it. Instagram page, which has a beautiful name, just a lot of dots and hyphens and stuff, underscores. Anyhow, I'm just
you can search Your Easy Life.
Okay,
you'll find me.
Your Easy Life is the Instagram page. You can take a look at all 7 of these. We are on number 5, item number 5, which is resigning to control. Explain, please.
So this is where you get this combination of denial, of compensating behaviors, as accepting that the beliefs you have about the person may not be exactly as you thought they were in those first 2 stages, but there's a level of hope that that person will come back. And if you adjust your behavior, which is kind of the 4th way to deal with dissonance, is to take the responsibility yourself for the behavior, because ultimately we have a lot more control over our own behavior than we do another person. And if you have a level of self-awareness, if you have a desire to kind of communicate and to grow and to adjust and to compensate and to respond in a relationship in a healthy way, then you'll take an element of responsibility and you will start to kind of adjust your behaviors. And this is what happens. You essentially are succumbing to the kind of behavior that is being played out, the pattern, but it is kind of, it's characterized by, I love them that much, I'm prepared to let that slide, or I'm not going to do that because I know it will create this result. So I'm not going to go out with my friends on Friday night because I know there's going to be a punishment.
That's like, then you're like a slave at that point. You're like a prisoner in your own home or in your own life because you're afraid to do something.
It absolutely, and because it can start with with simple, with very small things that don't come up regularly. Because this is the thing, it's kind of cleverly done. I think the friendship one is probably a really good example of it, because isolation is a really powerful tool for an abusive person, because when you're alone, then you don't get the kind of other ideas coming in. People aren't looking out for you so much, so they're able to have more power and control. And exactly that. But if you think about how often you might go out with your friends, it might be once a month, it might be once every couple of months. And so these things, they start gradually. The first time it's a text message to say, why aren't you home sooner? The next time is, oh, I hope you're going to be back earlier than you were last time. Then it's, I'm outside waiting for you, why are you not ready? And then it's, you're not going. So we could be 6 to 8 months in at this point, and that's after the love bombing and the trust and dependency and the criticism, so we're talking about being really quite far into a long-term, what we foresee as a long-term relationship and a commitment between two people, and also a commitment to work through any problems that might come up.
That's a very good point about working through situations or problems or emotions that may come up, because he could be feeling that way, she could be feeling that way, but you're saying this is different. I'm going to go to your number 5. That person is literally, to maintain any form of normalcy in the relationship, the victim will begin to succumb to the negativity and resign to the unhealthy dynamics of the relationship just to keep the peace. So
it's that thing of, that's just how they are. I don't even ask to go out with my friends now.
Yeah. Because... And I'm going to piggyback to some of your comments in the caption, the caption of your posting. It says, do you lie to your friends and family about being fine when you are not? This is in regards to the relationship. Do you feel anxious, unwell, drained, confused, hopeless, and lost? And then you ask this other question: are you finding it hard to go no contact? And then you say, answer yes to any of those. And you highlight that the number one sign of trauma bonding is rationalizing or justifying another person's bad behavior. So you're saying that's common. Once a person is in a trauma bond, you start to almost unnecessarily give that person the benefit of the doubt.
Absolutely. And that's the denial playing out in kind of a less obvious way. It's about denying what you're experiencing. So if somebody questions it, or even if you self-question, you can then get into a habit of self-gaslighting, self-denial, which is, one of the kind of most difficult things to come through, and often one of the hardest and probably one of the messiest parts of doing the work to kind of recover is that acceptance of how much you've kind of self-denied, how much you've chosen to ignore, because it's not a case of blaming yourself. There's no place for blame in that process, and often that's where people, and we all get stuck, is that as we start to recognize that we were employing tactics, behaviors, mechanisms to protect ourselves that perpetuated the relationship, the tendency is to blame. And at that point, it's really important to offer yourself that kind of loving kindness, compassion, to say you are just doing what feels the safest at that time. And often it feels safer to resign to control, to walk on eggshells, to succumb to this kind of negativity, and to
give in, to just
give in and to kind of bracket it as, well, that's just how they are. But I loved that person underneath, because at this point, often there's a belief that underneath all of this behavior is the person that was doing the love bombing and the trust and dependency bit. And the reality is that person wasn't never underneath. What was underneath was this person.
The person you're getting in the moment is actually the person that is putting up all of these points, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, as it were, 4 points. And now you're in point number 5. You're just giving them the benefit of the doubt.
Here, this is the stage where actually it's the 1 to 4 is behaviors of the perpetrator.
Got it.
5 to 7, we start to flip onto the victim, which is why the self-blame starts to happen at this point. And that does just perpetuate the trauma bond, because the perpetrator can use the self-blame in their favor. They can use that as a tool for the manipulation to continue now.
We're going to need to take a commercial break, which is going to last about 22 seconds. And yes, many of you, some of you have touched the bases with me to ask me this question, and I'm going to answer it for you now. Yes, I know I did not play a closing video for you in our first show. We were spending approximately 30 minutes with Dr. Annie Cassina, PhD. We had an enjoyable time together and a great conversation off camera when we were done. And I thank her for that. You will see her back for part number 3. We do have a thank you video for your show today. Show number 2 today. We will be playing that at the end. And we are going to play our commercial break for you right now. Many of you have requested us to do this sometimes when we're about halfway through the show. And we are right now 30 minutes in. And we covered a great deal of ground and territory concerning the trauma bond with beautiful Eve Bradley, mentor that she is, on helping people navigate through narcissistic abuse recovery. She is able to mentor you with that. We have so much more in store for you. We're going to take a commercial break, and we're going to come right back. But when we do, yes, we're going to look at numbers 6 and 7. But more importantly, we're going to look at some of these red dots that you see on the screen here and discuss that as well as a little bit more. So hang in there. We're going to take a sip of whatever we got, a little something, and we're going to come right back in just a moment. Told you we would be back. So, all right, we're back. Thank you so much, Eve, for all of the in-depth explaining that you're able to do here. But I need to turn to that caption again. There's so much there in that caption. You say some other trauma bonding signs include agreeing with the abuser's reasons for treating you poorly. I have to admit, I even have a hard time reading that now. Is that a part of the self-denial?
Absolutely, and it's part of the gaslighting, and it's part of being somebody who has a level of empathy and a level of awareness. Now, wherever that awareness is, when you have the ability to put yourself into somebody else's shoes, that means that you also have the ability to put yourself into somebody else's shoes as they are responding to your behaviors. Now, that sounds a little bit kind of complicated, but what it means is that if you have been tired, if you have been hangry and you have been a bit snappy, maybe it's a hormonal thing like we all experience, maybe you're just tired, maybe you're stressed, maybe you have just done that thing that makes us human, and that is to just kind of express from a place of emotion and not from a place of rational behavior. It's normal. We're human. Now, that's a perfect opportunity for somebody who is trying to exact power and control and to diminish your sense of self-worth, to make their sense of self-worth inflate. That is a perfect opportunity to inflate that behavior, to amplify it into the point of being a problem, and not to approach it with empathy. And so when somebody says, well, you snapped at me when you came home from work, you're always coming home from work tired, you're miserable, you don't treat me how you used to, all of these kinds of things. And then you start to think, oh, well, I am tired from work. Oh, I don't feel like I'm very energized. Yes, you're right. I haven't been doing X, Y, and Z. And you take the responsibility for the behavior.
Because of taking on the responsibility of a behavior that we have been or a person pushed into or provoked or prodded toward, it also mentions here trying to cover for the abuser.
And this often shows up when there is an underlying excuse being used for the abuse. So that might be an addiction, it might be mental health disorder or illness or experience, it might be stress at work, it might be adjusting to having a family, it might be not being happy in the house that you live in. Whatever it is used to excuse the abusive behaviours. Now, it's important to note that you can only ever explain abusive behaviour, you cannot excuse it, even if it is based on underlying trauma, or if it's, even if it's diagnosed in terms of a mental health disorder. There isn't any mental health disorder that says that a response to it is to abuse another person, and that's a perfectly understandable explanation. That doesn't exist. And so this is where we start to try to cover for the abuser. Oh, but she is stressed with work. Oh, but he has money problems, he's worried about money, or he's suffering with depression.
His childhood, he went through
exactly.
this. A number of different things can come into play as to the causes, but the result is essentially, I like how you said it, essentially the result is it doesn't give you a green light to abuse another human being or to mistreat verbally or physically, emotionally another person. You have point number 3, arguing with or distancing yourself from people trying to help, including family and friends. Now, I know just from doing this, a man with a mic with this show for a couple of years, that seems to be a common thing, huh?
Yeah, and this is kind of an unconscious behavior often for people, because they wouldn't always notice that what they were doing were pushing people away, but it all is part of the denial response to this sense of dissonance, this I've got this kind of hyper ability to handle whatever's being thrown at them, to not let people in. Because let's be honest, the person that you have let into your life is now causing you to be in fight or flight mode, to have these kind of triggered responses that are very primitive. And even if you're not conscious of that at the time, your body knows that this is what's happening. Your body knows that this person is unsafe for you. And so when other people try to get in and offer support, compassion, you're already in a place where you don't feel like you can trust them. Again, happening subconsciously a lot of the time. You wouldn't know to say, or you wouldn't outwardly think that I'm not receptive to the support of the people that love me. But often it's too much like looking in a mirror. It's too much like facing the truth to have to kind of be around the people that truly do care for you, and so you withdraw. And so that it really feeds into the isolation as well. It almost makes the perpetrators kind of ability to isolate you even easier. And I know I experienced that really firsthand, in that I withdrew from all of my social network and my family.
Well, let's go there for a minute. You went through this. This is not like you're just reading this from some handbook and you're talking to people.
Unfortunately not.
I mean, we've done a number of shows, but I'm trying to lead you up to this point to say it, so I don't say it. You went through this. You went through your body knowing something was off because, as you said just a moment ago, you let that person into your world, and now you're telling people who you felt safe with before to go away. And you said your body knows the difference. What was that like, briefly as you can? What was the feeling like that you were going through as you were processing this, as you were dealing with it? Just give me anything. Give me all of it. I want to know all of it.
The thing
you don't have all day, but
with the attachment that you form with a perpetrator of harm in your life, so with my ex, was that it was all encompassing, that it was all kind of founded on that love bombing phase, and that the chaos that is created inside the relationship and the life and the ups and the downs, it's an intense melting pot of experiences and of emotions, of outbursts, of moments of deep passion and utter despair, all rolled into one. Then actually cultivating and maintaining relationships with people outside of the dynamic is very, very energy intensive in and of itself. And also you've got to satisfy all of those
Wow.
criticisms that have been leveled at you,
Wow.
all of the other things. So essentially you're just so confused. And whether you're aware of how confused you are or not is up for debate. I wasn't aware as how confused I was, but I was
That's what I was
literally
going to
just trying
ask
to
you. I
get
was going to
through
ask you
each
how
day.
aware. That's what I wanted to know. So, did you know you were confused, or were you
No, I
just
thought I
living
had
each
it
day?
all under control.
Oh, uh,
Because
now,
I'm a capable woman. I've got,
yes,
I've had
yeah,
businesses all my life. I've
yeah,
made
yeah.
lots of big things happen.
Mm-hmm.
To think that, looking back, that I thought that
Wow.
relationship was healthy, that it was good
Yeah.
for me, that it was reciprocated, that it was balanced, that it was, equal. It's almost like looking back at somebody else's story.
I cannot wait till you write a book. You gotta.
My
I,
children just need to just get a little bit
I
older.
know. Yes. I know. I know. I'm just teasing you again. That's one of the things I can't wait for Eve's book. All right. So let's do this. Let's go here and take a look at this together, my friend. Number 6.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned you already broke it down for everybody. The first 4 is the perpetrator, the predator.
Yeah, the perpetrator is driving those behaviors. The energy is coming from them, and then this is almost like the response that happens internally, the breaking down that's going on, that resigning, that acceptance, and then inevitably this leads to a loss of self, because when you are accepting behaviors that, or experiences, or emotions, or feelings, or patterns that are not good for you, that do
Mm-hmm.
not promote well-being,
Mm-hmm.
but actually kind of demote it in terms of its importance in your life, you lose your sense of identity. Because if you don't have a strong sense of self, if you don't have a high self-esteem,
Mm-hmm.
if you're not putting your needs at least on par with the other person, if not actually just a little bit above, because if we all do that, then we all prioritize our own well-being, and therefore we're all well and healthy.
Right. Right.
Then you lose it. You lose that sense of self, because you don't know what to attach to, and you end up attaching to them, and your identity gets wrapped up in the relationship, in the dynamic. The trauma bond becomes your identity.
When I look here at number 6, um, thank you so much for explaining everything so well. Again, the majority of the audience that watches us here on YouTube, or as well as Instagram, are beginning their journey of healing. So all of this information, no doubt, is making a great deal of headway for them. Number 6 is loss of self. When trying to fight back, things get worse. The victim starts to settle for whatever the perpetrator wants to have, some peace, and make the bad parts of the relationship stop. Um, I've got to ask you, do you remember when you were going into that phase, number 6, when
I
you were
really
dealing with
do.
your narcissistic, abusive ex?
I really do, because for a long time I took full responsibility for the troubles in our relationship. I completely bought into all the criticisms. I
Wow.
completely
Mm,
internalized all of the kind of negativity, the insults that were leveled at me. And so
mm,
I really lost myself.
yeah.
And I remember looking in the mirror one time. I tried to leave well, the 7th time was my
Hmm.
successfully. And so in the kind of run up to in the 7 times, one of the times I remember looking in the mirror and just not recognizing myself at all.
Wow.
And that was how kind of visual that loss of self happened. I didn't recognize
Hmm.
my face. I looked into my eyes. I didn't even recognize my eyes. I
Hmm.
didn't know who I had become.
You 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 bring a point to mind for me. I'm thinking about a young lady that said similar to what you're just highlighting. She looked at old pictures, uh,
Mm.
and she didn't even recognize the person in the picture.
I see. Now that's interesting, because I wouldn't have photographs taken of me at that time. There
Wow.
are no photographs at that time.
That's my first time hearing that. I imagine people go through that too, though, right? Right? They just didn't feel photogenic.
Not at all. And I didn't want to see, subconsciously, I obviously didn't want to see myself. And,
Yeah.
if anyone follows me on Instagram, you'll know there's plenty of photographs of me out there that I am continually talking to the camera all the time. And so
I don't know where this shy person called Eve ever existed, because I remember posting that said, "Oh, this is just not for me." And I think you're doing a great job. Go ahead.
well, and my journey to being on camera has been quite, and actually has been really fundamental to my own personal healing and recovery, is
Yeah.
actually the progression of me being confident on camera and speaking and using my voice and,
Yeah.
and supporting other people has been fundamental to my own recovery journey, because I was told so much that I either spoke too much or that I didn't make sense.
Wow.
And so to now be in a position where I talk a lot and I
That's
have to
too much.
make sense is, the underlying kind of programming that was put in place during that time has been something that I've
Wow.
really worked through, in terms of recognizing that that was all part of this process, this
Yeah.
loss of self, this doubting, this denial, this
Yeah.
self gaslighting, and these
He was
kinds
trying
of
to
things.
shut you up. He was trying to
Yeah,
shut you up.
absolutely.
He was intimidated by your intelligence and your ability to be linguistically uh, a linguistic specialist. That's what I'm going to call you. I just
Unless
made
he
that.
wanted to utilize it for his own
Yeah.
gains, but that's
Yeah.
a whole
Yeah.
other
Yeah.
show, that one.
Well, realistically, well, we're not going to get into that. We'll do that another show. I'm not going to say what I'm going to say. I better be quiet. Anyhow, what I was going to say is number 6, we've touched on. I do want to highlight to everyone, please consider this possibility of joining her release retreat. We're going to talk a little bit about that in just a moment. But you have a retreat, the release retreat, that is there for individuals to be mentored by, who wouldn't want to be mentored by this beautiful person here speaking right now? Be mentored by Eve Bradley through this retreat. We're going to talk a little bit more about it, but I need to read this. If you think these are your words, Eve, in your posting. If you think you or someone you love is experiencing a trauma bond, please reach out for help. Why is that important for people to take that to heart?
Because of all the underlying mechanisms that are happening subconsciously, because of the different ways in which this attachment forms. We're talking here about the stages. We're probably not going to get into today the way that the cycle
No.
starts
Yeah.
to reinforce
Mm-hmm.
this, and that we develop this physical attachment. We're going to touch on this addiction stage now, but it's at this point that we enter the cycle, and the cycle of addiction, and that is really runs a line with the cycle of abuse. And we develop this physical dependency, we develop this kind of emotional bond,
Mm-hmm.
where the dissonance is really highlighted. And also there's an energetic connection that is formed and reinforced throughout this whole process too. And so in order to break it, you really do need to kind of attack all of those dimensions. And everybody's different. Everybody has a different kind of dominant dimension, a dominant strand, as I would call it. And so having a strategy that really works for you and where you are at in terms of your trauma bond, what kind of trauma bond you've formed, and also the way that you process information, the way that you best kind of receive knowledge, take action. Some of us are very visual, and so using visualizations, using meditations, using color, using all different healing aspects that involve the visual can be really powerful. But if you are a kinesthetic processor, if you like to do things, if you like to build, if you like to be hands-on, then all of that's not going to work, and you're going to end up feeling like, I can't break this, it's not for me. And the reality is that you're probably not doing the right things. And so by reaching out for help, you can be sure to speak with somebody who is outside of the illusion of the trauma bond and can see the best way forward for you.
Yeah, and being outside of the illusion of the trauma bond, you're, as a mentor, you're able to help them navigate what they're actually dealing with. But you seem to also be in a position where you're assessing the best way for them to process it.
Yeah, and that's my personal approach, is that I believe that having a strategy for anything makes the likelihood of having a positive result increase. We all know that having a plan improves performance, it improves the outcome, it improves the likelihood of something going the way that we want it to. And actually having a strategy of things that you can be doing to break your trauma bond makes sitting and waiting for time to pass, or trying to read your way out of a situation or think your way out of a situation to be, it's very difficult to do that when you are battling all of these coping mechanisms and you've got somebody who has spent the time of your relationship working out exactly what to do and say to get you back into the cycle.
That's right. Yeah, you're dealing with an expert and a specialist at causing chaos and confusion and drama, and blaming others for their bad behavior, and you're trying to navigate it one kind of way that's just not going to work for you personally. We're going to look at number 7. Put that back up on the screen. And number 7 was, as you touched on, addiction. The cycle of abuse kicks in. So in other words, are you saying then that the first 4 things start to kick in, or no?
The first 4. No, the cycle of abuse is is where you've got this calm phase. You've got, and this is where the behaviors become a little bit more pronounced. And this is, like I say, these are the stages that get you into the trauma bond. What then maintains it is the kind of the cycle. So we've got this situation where you've got tension building. So you start to walking on eggshells starts to happen. You experience high levels of adrenaline. Then you've got outbursts. You're experiencing the cortisol through the stress responses to a threat to your either physical well-being or your emotional well-being. And then you've got that reconciliation phase where the dopamine is triggered and the positive feelings start to wash over you, and the promises come in, and the hopes for the future and the promises it will never happen again start to come in, or you start to do that self-gaslighting thing. And then finally you go into that calm phase, the oxytocin, and it's this that forms the addiction. It's at this point that it's very difficult to get out of it, because you are in an addictive phase. Your body has started to become dependent on the experiences of these hormones and neurotransmitters. And it's so habitual that it's become part of life now. And often when we describe it as an addiction, it unlocks a lot for people, because we obviously often associate addiction with illegal substances, with alcohol, even with sugar and with food. It can be difficult for people to identify their own addictive behaviors in those. Exercise. And so when we talk about being addicted to a person or a relationship, there's a real leap in understanding and perspective that certainly has not been talked about in life before. It's often the first time that we talk about the possibility of being addicted to a person, but there's every evidence to suggest that's what happened. And based on people's stories and the way that they describe it and my own personal experience, it's exactly like an addiction.
So the highs and lows become a lifestyle. You've explained that without a doubt. Lifestyle hard to break for many. Breaking that trauma bond, breaking that bond of being addicted to the highs and lows and the chaos. But you're highlighting your program, though. You're highlighting that by them being a part of the retreat, they're going to be able to get a better understanding of what they're going through, but they're also going to be able to break from it. Now correct me if
we'll definitely be starting to take the actions within the foundation. So the retreat is an online event. It's over 3 days, and it's made up of a series of sessions and access to resources and healing practices that will fit in around a day to day. So I'll be going live at the same time every day to deliver a presentation, training, workshop, something of that kind of ilk, where I'll be sharing some knowledge. I'll also be sharing some really practical tools and techniques you can start using straight away to begin to let go of harmful attachments and past memories and things that are weighing on you from the past that you are ready to let go of. I'll be walking you through how to do that, but also I'll be talking about how you can identify what kind of toxic attachment you've got. There is something that I will be sharing on the first day, which is access to a brand new resource that I have put together, which is the test or the metric that I use with my clients to determine which of their strands is the most dominant. So whether it's that physical, emotional, or energetic strand, and how they process using their subconscious. I'll be sharing what is now an online test yourself, whereas historically I have to go through it and work out the result, but it's now been turned into an online test. So you'll be able to take that and really get information about your attachment, about where you are most kind of struggling. And then I'll be sharing with you some of the ways that you can break those attachments and you can let go of that bond using this information.
Because if a person doesn't begin to break the bond, they continue to have the same old patterns, and then they're wondering why, they're feeling
absolutely.
abused.
And it's going to manifest in a whole host of different ways. Manifest certainly in anxiety, in self-esteem levels being really low, self-worth levels being at the bottom that they probably ever remember, feeling so unworthy. And it's also going to manifest physically. So many people will describe the sensation of the attachment being in their stomach or in their chest, and often feeling short of breath a lot of the time, maybe experiencing a lot of throat infections or sore throats or chest, colds and coughs lingering for a long time, not to mention IBS, digestive issues with reproductive kind of, or the cycle, your menstrual cycle can be impacted. Your digestion certainly is impacted. I personally developed a lactose intolerance.
Wow. I've heard a lot of those. It's just, you're saying so many that many have expressed to me that they've went through in their journey. If you're dealing with these items now that are causing problems in your lifestyle, it could be because that trauma bond is, what you're saying, is still in effect.
Absolutely.
And causing all of these physical problems.
Absolutely. That energetic imbalance, that kind of focus on trauma. There's an awful lot of research to suggest that trauma affects the pH of the body. So there are certain foods that become very difficult to be digested if you're experiencing high levels of trauma, or you've got unresolved trauma that's being stored. And if you're in a survival situation, the hormonal flooding of the adrenaline and the cortisol that's happening causes all sorts of physical responses that are really there to help you in times of short bursts and situations where you are able to actually get to safety. When you're inside a relationship like this, there's very little opportunity to spend any amount of time in a space of safety.
Yeah, because the individual, I'll pick me. So I would have been on a treadmill at high speed all the time, not feeling safe. So you're going to take me, for example, through this retreat online, and I'm able now to slow things down and see exactly each running step that I'm making, to the point that I'll be able to have a lifestyle that I'm walking and feeling safe instead of running all the time.
And that's exactly why I chose for it to be a retreat and not an online workshop or a conference or any of those words. It is a retreat. It's about withdrawing in order to move forward. It's
Got it.
about taking a pause to really honor yourself, to give you an opportunity for a little bit of reflection, a little bit of re-examination, and then ultimately a release. And that can be very difficult to do if you're continuing on the treadmill at the
Mm-hmm.
same pace. You
Mm-hmm.
must take that step and honor yourself. And I know that people will be watching this and thinking, I can't take that time for myself. I don't deserve that time. I've got this to do. I've got that
Okay,
to do. I
what do
need
you
to
say?
look
What do
after.
you say to those people, my friend? What do you say to those people? Come
I
on now.
will absolutely implore you to come and join and just soak it in. It's such a flexible setup for that exact reason. There's no requirement to be anywhere at a certain time. There's no requirement to even interact with anybody else who is on retreat. There will be a Facebook group where the extroverts amongst us and the people that do want to offer support and compassion and receive it inside a safe space, that will
Mm-hmm.
be available. But if you are at a place in your journey where you really just want to kind of absorb it, you want to take it from to work through it at your own pace, then this is still perfect for you, because alongside the Facebook group, there's also an online portal where everything will be uploaded. So it's not a social media dependent event. This is a there will be streamed onto Facebook and Instagram simultaneously. However, everything will be also available in the portal for you to catch up on. And really, you can make this time as kind of withdrawn as you want it to be. If you want to schedule for your day a meditation, if you want to schedule some exercise or some movement, a walkout, a bit of journaling, watching the broadcasts, watching the live sessions, or watching the catch-ups of them, utilizing the extra resources that are there, then you can do. Or you can just soak in the information that I'm sharing on your drive to work, and you can just let it kind of integrate through your
Awesome.
day.
Awesome. 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 Now, this is going to cost, right?
No, 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 no. This is totally free. This is my gift to
Oh,
every survivor out there, because this is exactly what I wished I could have found or
yeah.
done when I was in that space where I was
Yeah.
totally overwhelmed and I was stuck in that pattern, and I needed something to just cut through and just to make me stop. And so this is my gift to every survivor out there, to come and join, to learn some of the techniques that work for me and work for the people that I support and that I guide, and just to be in a space, be part of a collective. No matter how involved you wish to be, you will be part of a collective. We will form a kind of an energetic bubble in which we all exist. And you know what? That's another really nice thing in terms of just doing something for yourself, knowing that for 3 days you will be part of something which is bigger than you, which is filled with people that have shared experiences, that you are not alone, that we are all here for you, and we have all been through some similar things, and we've trod our unique path through life to get to this place. But we get it, we understand, and we want you to let go so that you can start to open up the space to receive in what is truly destined for you.
We have indeed touched on a number of things this evening for you there in the UK. This is my UK day. I had Annie Casina before you from the UK, and now I have you. On this beautiful day, Eve is rounding out our second show of the day by letting you know you can, and I encourage you to do so, book your place with her so you can begin, changing the rhythm of your life. The rhythm of your life does not have to be dictated by someone who is not out to protect and take care of your heart. You can connect with Eve, speak to her, go to her Instagram page. Your YouTube page is what?
Your Easy Life as well. Your Easy Life with Eve Bradley. Not with
Uh,
all the extra
I know it.
punctuation in
Yeah.
it, though.
Yeah. Well, look, hey, you guys, this is our little joke between each other, but I think Eve is fantastic. She gives from the heart. She's a very structured and deliberate person about helping individuals move forward out of a negative lifestyle into a very healthy lifestyle. The best is yet to come, but consider seriously, as I do on the screen, book your place. I know I'm so lame, book your place with Eve. She's an amazing person who will be able to help you as you move forward. Eve, we are going to call this show to an end. We're going to end this show. But before we do, are you smiling? Are you
I
smiling?
am. Always.
Eve's done a number of shows with me, but I told her today that I had something for her at the end of the show.
It's a
So,
nervous smile.
uh, I know it is, but I have told Eve this before we started. I talk with my guests a little bit before we start, but all of our shows are live. They are not some type of canned show in which you told me you guys don't want to see shows where people are on Zoom together and it's boring and they just keep talking and na. Okay, so you've got this format that we've done, but I keep this element of live in. She's sitting there going like, "Oh, hurry up, Paxton, get to it." So I had someone else that I was going to guinea pig. I had it between two people. I had it between Sarah, who does Gaslighting 101, a show here on our network, and Eve. I was going to do this to Sarah, but Sarah has been very busy. She'll be back soon. And so, Eve, you're it. Tag, you're it. So here we go. I'm going to put something up on the screen. I want you, with your expertise, to just have at it. Pick one of the items that you see on the screen that I'm going to post here and talk about it from your expertise. Now, here we go. I'm going to put it up on the screen. Pick from one of these 5 and feel free to talk about it and give some words of encouragement.
Toxic family members, when you leave their presence. Okay. So you want me to just talk around one of those, or
just whatever your expertise on
I
any
like
one of those.
this, the first one. When you leave their presence, you often feel worse than you did before. I think this absolutely speaks to one of the most powerful tools that you have in your possession that costs you nothing, but does take a little bit of practice and focus to utilize. And that is your body. Your body knows so much more than your mind. Your mind's job is to think. Your body's job is to heal and to propel you as far into the future as it can possibly take you. And so your body has so much more knowledge than your mind ever can. And just practicing tuning into your body, developing your intuition, trusting your intuition, and really taking note of how you feel after you've spent time with or around people. And I think I'm going to kind of talk about something that I use a lot when it comes to understanding whether something's toxic or not, and that is using the bubble that we all exist inside. Everybody exists inside a bubble of energy. And when you spend time with somebody who is healthy, your bubbles come together, they form a bigger bubble, and you feel safe and you feel rejuvenated and refreshed when you spend time. And when those bubbles separate again, they go on with the person and they stay with the person. And whilst you know that person is there, is safe, is there for you, is good, and you wish them well, and you've got all these positive, lovely feelings about them, you don't feel attached to their bubble. You are happy that they are in their bubble and you are happy in yours. When it comes to a toxic attachment, those bubbles never merge. They only ever sit beside each other. And what happens instead is a cord forms, a drain forms. And so even when they're 1,000 miles away, when you think about them, it drains you. And that's how you know when someone's toxic. That's how you know when someone is bad for you, is that when you think about them, it brings you into a state of being which is worse than you were before you were thinking about them. And if you've been around them, you know it's going to be worse.
That's just one. You only picked one. And look what you did. That was awesome. That was really good. And I was going to feel bad for a moment or two that I even surprised you with that. And you ran with it. That was beautiful, my friend. I'm giddy like a kid over here. I don't know whether to sit still or not because you just kept going. That was beautiful and very encouraging. I can't wait. Hey, when I send you a copy of this, make sure you slice that out and post this somewhere, because that was the beautiful explanation of what toxic is and what it does to a person. would you say a
And
million
we can
miles
feel
away?
it, you know, we can feel it even if we haven't been. I mean, I don't know, because I've not been in a toxic relationship, but I can imagine people that haven't been in a toxic relationship can still identify with that sense that somebody that just drains your energy, and trusting that if that happens, that it's okay to not engage with that person any more than is absolutely necessary, if at all.
Yeah, that was excellent, my friend. That was absolutely fantastic. I don't know what to say. I'm telling you, when I send this copy to you, you get to this part of the show, you can slice this up many different ways and put it on TikTok or something. I don't know, wherever you are, put it everywhere, because that was a beautiful explanation of what many people write to us about it. My daughters and I, in regards to what they're going through. But this is what people are trying to make sense of, which you've just described, made sense of it all. Listen to your body, and a number of things that you
Trust it.
highlighted there. We are at the end of the show, and at the end of this show, I'm only going to do this because it's Eve. I am going to, on camera, on the internet, ask you to please come back and do a series of shows with me. I normally do this in private, but please say yes. Just like, us getting engaged in front of everybody. If you say no,
Absolutely.
if you say no, that's going
I
to really
can't say
suck
no.
right now.
I wouldn't
So
say no anyway,
but
Paxton.
we're going to put something together for everybody. We don't tell you what it is right now because we're going to talk about it. And remember, all content that you see here in our live shows are from my guests, like Eve, who give of their time and energy in evenings for free. I don't pay them. They don't pay me. We work together so you can have this free internet TV and mental health TV that we have here at Narcissistic TV Network. End of the show, but we got a video that I'm going to do because I was harassed because I didn't do it in the last one. So we're going to play the video for you guys to tell you thank you for being here. The video is a minute of your time, a minute and 5 seconds. All of our videos, we try our best to make sure that they're encouraging to you. But you have just met two encouraging people today. Dr. Annie Cassina, PhD. We got time together in the first episode today. In our second episode or second show was here with beautiful Eve Bradley, a mentor who can help you. Join the retreat, people. Put the pizza down. Don't be cheap. It costs you nothing. Still, you can donate to her anyhow. So at least, send her some money so she can keep these programs going. But without a doubt, if you cannot afford to send money, no worries. Eve's got you covered. She will work with you. And then you can also pursue one-on-one sessions with her as well. Hey, look, everybody, thank you so much. And to those of you who wrote me today and said, Paxton, you seem off. I have been off, but that's okay. Tomorrow, we're coming back again with Dr. Darlene Lancer. Let me rephrase that. Darlene Lancer will be here. She is, of course, the author of the book, Codependency with Dummies. She will be with us here tomorrow. Eve, you're awesome. You're awesome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Totally
It's
awesome.
been great fun.
I'll see you again, my friend. I'm going to play this video, and we'll talk after the show. Okay, we'll talk after the show. Everybody enjoy your video.
Bye.
Bye.